Hello, and welcome to another episode of Lead with Less. I'm Tash Peterson, Certified People Leadership Coach. So today's episode, I wanted to share how you can set you and your team up for a holiday break. This is something that I think is really important as a leader to make sure that when the holiday season is coming up, whether this is even just a period, like a longer period of annual leave, whether it's in the middle of the year, at a different time of the year, but generally here in New Zealand or in the Southern Hemisphere, Christmas time tends to be the time where people take the longest period of leave over the summer holidays. And I thought that this would be a really important episode to help you as a people leader set yourself up and set your team up for a successful holiday break. Because no matter how many times we know that this happens, we know that leave happens, we still find ourselves really floundering and stressing and getting overwhelmed when this time of year comes up. So I really hope that this episode is helpful for you as we come to these last few weeks of the year. And I hope that this is actually helpful for you at any time throughout the year when you're looking at taking leave or when someone in your team is taking leave. What I'm going to cover in today's episode is why doing this intentionally matters, why being really intentional about setting yourself and your team up for the holiday break is important, 4 things to consider and plan for. So what are the 4 things to have conversations about, get ready, plan, put in place, all of those things so that your holiday break can actually be a really nice time. And then I've got 3 mindset reminders that I want to share with you to help you through the holiday break so that you can feel as calm and centered as possible and to set your team up in that way as well. So let's dive on in. Why does doing this intentionally matter? Last week, I released an episode 72, about the things to not get sucked in towards the end of the year. That is such an important episode in terms of a lot of the emotions, a lot of the panic and the stress and everything that comes up this time of year. So if you haven't listened to that episode, definitely give it a listen. So the other reason why doing this intentionally matters is that it sets really clear expectations of what needs to be done before the break and how things will be handled during the period of leave and then what you'll focus on when you get back. And when we don't spend the time actually doing this, we frantically wrap up things towards the end of the year. Then we're thinking about a lot of things while we're on leave. And then we come back to work and then we're not really sure what we're focusing on. And so we almost just fall back into that feeling of overwhelm and worry all over again when we've just had this period of a break. And one of the other reasons as well is that it keeps emotions in check and ensures that the focus is on the right things. So if we know what we're here to do, if we know how we're setting ourselves up before we go on leave, then we are going to reduce overwhelm and we're going to actually be able to enjoy our period of leave when we go on leave, not waiting for ourselves to unwind and settle before we're able to really enjoy that. And it also gives individuals control over how they finish the year and prepare for their time off. So for you, it helps to give you control and helps for you to prepare how you finish up the year and how you move into your break, but it also helps your team do the same thing, which is a really important and empowering feeling to give to your team, especially when they're about to go on leave and actually just at any time, right? The more control, empowerment, and accountability and ownership we can give our people, the more engaged and committed they actually are to the work that they're doing. So this is something to really focus on. All right. So what are the 4 things to consider and plan for when you are going to take a holiday break? The first thing is who is going to be on leave and who's going to be working. Sounds like a really obvious one, and I'm sure that you're already doing this. I really want to just dive a little bit deeper into this because one thing that I see all too often is, okay, I'm taking 3 weeks off, yet I'm still going to check in. I'm still going to, you can still contact me. You can still email me. You can still phone me. No, when we're on leave, we're on leave. So who in your team, whether that's you as the leader, whether that's someone in your team, who is going to be on leave, actually on leave away from work, and who's going to be working. For the people who are on leave, they are not contactable unless they are on call or there's a compensation that warrants for them to be contactable. I'm very strict with this because there is nothing worse than taking your annual leave and then constantly being contacted to get work done. That's not fair. And so many people don't actually revert their annual leave hours back to working hours to be able to get back that time. As a leader, we need to make sure that we actually support our people's boundaries for when they're on leave. When they're on leave, they're on leave. They need to be on leave in order to rest and rejuvenate. It's their entitlement. They are entitled to getting leave. They're entitled to take time away from work. And if that isn't possible, if it is so impossible for them to take time off work, there is a workload and a role structure issue that needs to be sorted. And that for you as a leader is something that you need to focus on. So for the people that are on leave, it means that they're on leave and not contactable. So what are the things that they need to do in order to make that happen? And I'll talk about that in the next point. And then for those who are working, in my time at DHBs, it used to be known as the skeleton staff, your bare minimum staff that do need to work, or maybe they don't have leave, or maybe they've opted to work during the holiday break. So for those who are working, what's required for them to be working on and to get done during that period? So this isn't any different to when your team is just working in general, like what's required of them to be working on so that they know what they're focused on. They know what they are doing over that period of time. So it's really important to be really clear about these two things. Who's going on leave? What does that actually mean? And who is staying working? And what does that actually mean? So that's the first thing. The second thing, what warrants contact during leave? Now, this is something that comes up far too often as a real big problem. And I had this a lot during my corporate career as well. As I would get contacted about stuff that was so unnecessary. Like, really, this couldn't wait 2 weeks for me to come back? Like, you did not need to contact me about this. But the reason that happened is a couple of things. One is it wasn't actually understood what warranted contact. So it wasn't clear about what was necessary to contact me about and what you could just sort out by yourself or what could wait. So that's the first thing. The second thing is if they don't feel confident in what they're owning and the work that they do, and they constantly need to seek reassurance, or they need to seek permission, or they need to double check things, they're going to be more likely to reach out when you're not there. And so it's really important to actually clarify what warrants contact during leave. What does urgent actually mean? So when we say contact me for anything urgent, what does that mean? And I see this on people out of offices all the time. I'll email them and be like, I'm out of office, I'm away sick, or I'm on annual leave, but for anything urgent, please contact me. What does that mean? What is urgent? Everything has multiple perceptions and multiple definitions. So you need to know, what does urgent actually mean? Let's clarify that so that people know when to actually use that. And this is so critical for your team. Okay, these are the things that are urgent and that you can contact me about. These are the things that are not urgent that you can either sort out by doing this or can wait until I get back. Let's get really clear about that. And that actually creates a really great environment for autonomy, for ownership, and accountability. The other thing that I see a lot is, what is an emergency? Now, I work with a lot of different clients in a lot of different industries and organizations. I've got some clients who work in high risk mental health and addiction and counseling services, drug and addiction. I work with people who are in technology that there is no direct sense of urgency over what they do. So again, emergency and urgent, two very different things for those two clients. They're on very different aspects of the spectrum of what urgency means. So we need to be very clear about what that means in our context. As a team, in terms of the work that we do, in terms of the things that we deliver and create, what does it mean for something to be urgent? And what does it mean for something to be an emergency that warrants contact? And who is the best person to call for those things? Now, people might be like, oh, Tash, do we really have to do this? Yes. Yes, you do. It might take a little bit of time up front. And right now, it might take a little bit more time to create these definitions, to create a common understanding about what we mean when we talk about these things. But it's actually going to set you up so much better in the long term. It's going to mean that people aren't going to message you during your leave, which you're going to be pretty damn happy about. So that is the second thing. What warrants contact during leave? What can people contact people about, and in what instances? So that people are all on the same page. And also this creates so much autonomy and accountability and ownership, which is so important and so critical. I'm interrupting this episode to let you know that the doors to the Leaders Lounge are officially open again. This is the community for leaders who want to connect, grow, and lead with courage and confidence into the future. If you're looking for a space where you can be connected, supported, and challenged to grow, then this is the space for you. Pull up the metaphorical chair, sip on your cuppa, and come together with other people leaders to create connections, challenge each other, and courageously tackle whatever comes your way. If you're interested to know more, head to the show notes and click on the Leaders Lounge to find out and to join. The doors are only open for a short time, so make sure you jump in quick. We would love to have you. The next thing, what is likely to happen during leave? So do some forecasting, do some, continuity planning. What is likely to happen during leave from previous years? And what will people do to problem solve on their own? So something that I see happen a lot is, especially in teams where there isn't a strong sense of self-accountability and self-ownership, everyone always looks to the manager to be the problem solver or to be the fixer or to give the last approval on something. That can obviously create lots of bottlenecks and create lots of problems. And so something that we really want to do is we want to create a sense of ownership that people can solve their own problems. And one way that you can do this is look at what some of the patterns are from the previous years to be able to prepare for the reality right now or what might come up when we're on leave or during that period. If last year XYZ happened, but actually they were such anomaly things that the likelihood of them happening again would be so low, you might not overly prepare for those things, but you might still say, okay, in the event that this does happen, this is what you would do. This is who you would contact. This is the process that you would go through. Again, some of that upfront preparation and investment of time is going to save you so much time if and when it does happen. And then there might be some things that have happened over previous years that are actually starting to become more common. They're probably a bit of a pattern. So what can you put in place in order to either minimize it happening, automate the process, or give your team exactly what they need in order to deal with it while you're not there? What is the process they can follow? Who can they contact? Who can they ask? What can they do? Et cetera, so that they feel autonomous in order to solve that problem, deal with that thing, if and when it comes up, and that it becomes such an urgent or emergent thing based on your definitions, then they would reach out and contact you. This is such an important thing. If you want a clear set of time off, if you want to genuinely rest during your annual leave, you need to set your people up for success for you to be able to do that. If you're constantly checking in and you're constantly being available for them, they're not going to step up to being that autonomous self. They're not going to step up to being able to solve those problems on their own. So that's the third thing. What's likely to happen during leave from previous years, and what will your people do to problem solve on their own, right? What can you put in place to mitigate if and when those things might come up? And then the last thing, and this could actually be the first thing, but what needs to be done before going on leave? And I talked about this in last week's episode as well, but this is so important in terms of setting you and your team up for a successful holiday break, is being actually really clear about what needs to get done, what's actually critical, and what's, okay, it'll be nice if this gets done, but hey, if we need to come back next year and kind of finish this off, that's totally fine. What is going to help set the team up for the best, most restful break? And one of the biggest things that happens is, I talked about this in last week's episode, we go into this panic mode of, oh my God, it's the end of the year. We just have to get all these things done. And we get frazzled, we get overwhelmed, we get panicky, and we burn ourselves out trying to get all this stuff done before our holiday. We go on holiday and we're spending all of our holiday recovering from that exhaustion. And then we're not actually getting a really restful break. And so much of that is because of unclear priorities and unclear expectations of what's actually necessary to finish up before a certain date. And so it's your job as a leader to make sure that what you're expecting your people to do before their period of leave is actually critical and necessary, and is going to set the team up and themselves up for a restful break. Again, this is about taking some time right now to reflect, to prepare, to work through all of these things so that at the time that people go on leave, this is what's going to best serve them and support them. This is so important. And it's also actually going to set you and your team up as well for when you come back from leave, because all the things that were really important to get done before you went on leave all got done, and then you can reset those priorities for when you come back from leave. So it's a really great way to actually know what you're coming back to, what you're going to get stuck into, what you're going to start working on. And that's also just going to be really great for your mindset and your mind space, because you know that you've closed things off really well before you went on leave, and then you have already set out exactly what you're going to come back to, which is just going to be such a great thing for your brain. There's going to be so much more space in there. And it's also going to mean that you are going to rest as well, because things are taken care of. It's not mulling around and swirling around in your brain. So those are the 4 things that I really encourage you to consider and plan for. So who's going to be on leave and who is working, and what are the expectations of both of those? What warrants contact during leave time? So what are the instances that people can contact people? What does urgent actually mean? What does emergency actually mean? And how can people actually just problem solve on their own? And then number 3, what is likely to happen during leave from previous years? And what will people do to problem solve by themselves? The more that they can do that, the more ownership they can have, the more autonomous they can be, you'll be surprised at how your team can step up. And then the 4th thing, what needs to be done before going on leave in terms of what's actually critical, not panic critical. So how can you set your team up in the best way by ensuring the right things are getting done before leave, and then setting up everything for when you come back from leave? So those are the 4 things that I encourage you to intentionally plan for and consider, so that you have the best chance of having a great holiday break. And I did say that I was going to wrap up with 3 mindset reminders. So here they are, in the hope that they can serve you really well. So you only get what you prepare and plan for. So if you want a restful break, you need to prepare for one. If you want time off to really relax, rejuvenate, enjoy the people you're going to spend time with, actually come back from your holiday feeling rested, you need to ensure that you plan for that in terms of getting the necessary things done, setting your team up for success, getting clarification of what's expected, what's not expected, all of those things. If you want a restful break, you need to plan and prepare for it. Your team can actually sort out things on their own. So this is the second mindset reminder. Your team can actually sort things out on their own. If you set them up for success with what they need, they will actually step up. They really will. And if they don't, if you don't think that your team can actually do things on their own and you keep checking in on them, that's actually a trust issue. You are showing them that you don't trust them. Set them up, give them what they need, and then go on leave. Give them a break. One of the things that I heard from one of the best managers was he came back from leave and he would delete all of his emails. Like, his emails would auto delete while he was on leave. And when he was asked about it, he was like, oh, but what if there was something, that you really need to deal with? And he said, if my team haven't dealt with it while I was on leave, then there's a problem. Why do I have a team of great people if I can't trust them to do their jobs while I'm not there? So your team can sort things out on their own. And if they can't, I would encourage you to reflect on why that is and what you might need to do in order to support them to be able to do that. And the last mindset reminder, you'll only feel rested if you actually rest. Annual leave is annual leave. It's not working away from the office. It's not checking in and doing stuff. If you're on leave, be on leave. Things can be sorted out when you come back, and things can actually just sort them out themselves when you're not available. You will only feel rested if you actually rest, so make sure that you do that. All right. I'm glad that I was able to keep that short and sweet. So there it is. That's how to set you and your team up for a holiday break that actually feels really restful and feels really good, so that your team can go on leave, have that break, and then come back with that renewed energy to support you. And to let you know that doors to the Leaders Lounge are actually open right now. We are kicking off the next group in January. If you're looking for a community of people leaders who want to be courageous and confident lead into the future, then this is the community for you to join. You can find all of the information in the show notes. If you have any questions, please let me know. As always, please feel free to message me, email me. All my contact details are in the show notes. Let me know what you thought about this episode. And if there's any other topics that you want me to share and talk about, then let me know as well. Have a great week, and I'll be back with another episode next week. Thank you for listening to this episode of Lead with Less, the podcast for people leaders. I hope what you've heard today has helped you on your people leadership journey. Remember, it's all a practice and you get better each day. If you enjoyed this episode and the show, please subscribe and take a moment to leave a review on iTunes, or you can leave a review on Spotify's Q&A polls under each episode. And if you know anyone who could benefit from listening to the show, then please do share this with them and help me reach as many people leaders as possible.